What's up, everybody? My name is Brad, and today I'm sitting in front of my Stephen King shelf with my growing, slowly but surely, Stephen King collection. And today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 favorite Stephen King books. And I preface this by saying this is my top 5 favorite Stephen King books. I haven't actually read all of the Stephen King books before. It's a shocker. How can you make a top 5 video if you haven't even read all of his books? Well, that's okay. I'm getting to it. So this is top 5 of the books I have read so far by Stephen King. I have read about 25 or so of his books, I believe. Just a little bit of backstory. I didn't start reading Stephen King, or really reading in general, until about 2015, so about 4 years ago. I read in elementary school, a little bit in middle school, but from there, through high school, college, and adult life, I didn't really care to read. Couldn't hold my attention, thought it was boring. But now that I've gotten a little bit older, I've gotten back into reading. So like I said, in 2015 is when I started reading Stephen King, my first Stephen King book. So only a few years, and I've got about 25 books under my belt. I am looking to read all of them eventually. He's got some big ones, so it'll take a while, but I'm looking to get to them all eventually. I'm going to cheat a little bit and start out with an honorable mention for number 6. And this isn't one book, but this is a series of books, but it's all one big long storyline, and that is the Dark Tower series, which is 8 books in total. So there's The Gunslinger, The Drawing of the Three, The Wastelands, Wizard and Glass, Wolves of the Calla, Song of Susanna, The Dark Tower, and then book 7.5, if you will, is Wind Through the Keyhole. That series, I read that early on in my Stephen King adventures, and that is, if it was all one book, that would be my number 1 book. I love all the characters in it. Love the gritty, the Western feel. Like I said, the characters: Roland, Eddie, Jake, Oy, Susanna, Odetta, and her other personalities. Spoilers. Going forward, by the way, this video will be have spoilers in it. So if you haven't read any of these books I'm going to be talking about, just be forewarned, I might be spoiling some things for you. But the journey that those characters go on, throughout those 8 books, it's amazing. It's Stephen King's magnum opus. It's emotional at the end. It's got great ties to all of his other works, basically. Characters, places, locations, and things like that. But the Dark Tower series, that's my honorable mention, is book number 6. So we'll go ahead and get on to my number 5 book, and that's Dolores Claiborne. I really like this book a lot. I love Dolores herself. The way she talks, she's just mean old woman. And the book is written in a different sort of style than all of his other books. It's sort of a police interview, sort of the documentation of her interview. And at the beginning of the book, she's suspected of murdering her current employer, I guess her former employer, since the lady's dead. I believe her name's Donovan, Vera Donovan, I believe. But she's talking to the police, and she's adamant that she didn't kill Vera Donovan, but she goes back 20 or 30 years, and is telling about her life and how she does confess to playing a role in murdering her husband, maybe 20, 30 years prior to that. Her husband was molesting her daughter, and she was trying to get her children and herself away from her husband. He was a drunk, he was abusive. Like I said, he was molesting the daughter, and Dolores didn't really know what to do about it. She tried to get away, but she had a separate bank account, and the husband ended up taking all the money out of that. So she didn't have any money to escape, or didn't have anywhere to go. So the only thing she could think of was to kill him to get rid of him. And it takes place during an eclipse, and that ties in with Gerald's game here. Slight tie-in with that. She gets her husband drunk, and gets him upset. He ends up chasing her, and she's covered up a well on their property. He steps on it, falls in, and eventually dies down there. And then at the end of the book, with the employer, Miss Donovan, she kind of falls as well, kind of parallels the husband, but this time Dolores didn't have anything to do with it. She actually tries to save her, even though her and Vera Donovan, they basically hated each other. But yeah, that's a really good book. That's not one many people talk about. Like I said, I love the way it's written, and I love the voice of Dolores. She's hilarious throughout the book and just tells it like it is. Doesn't give any crap about what anybody else thinks. Next up, number 4 is The Shining. Everybody basically knows what The Shining is. They've either read the book or seen the movie. The movie, it's okay. It's not bad, but it's not great. I did like Jack Nicholson's performance in it. He was great. And a lot of the iconic moments from the movie aren't even in the book. You know, the Here's Johnny, where he's peeking through the door he's chopped up. But The Shining, the book, is better in my opinion. You know, it's Jack Torrance. He's a, I guess, recovering alcoholic. He and his family go to the Overlook Hotel to basically, you know, sit there and do maintenance and upkeep during the winter months when it's closed. Dick Halloran is in the book, and he makes an appearance in it, so there's a connection there. And the son Danny, he has what they call what Stephen King calls the shine. He's able to see ghosts and past events, you know, kind of the replaying of events that ghosts have gone through. And the Overlook Hotel itself starts to drive Danny crazy. You know, he gets cabin fever. It's trying to sort of possess him, if you will. And at the end, he ends up trying to kill his family. You know, Danny and the wife, Wendy, they end up escaping. And in the book, he doesn't even have, you know, the axe that he's chopping like he does in the movie. He has a big, like, mallet. He walks down the hallways, he's pounding on the walls, pounding the doors down. And at the end is much better ending to the book than the movie. The Overlook Hotel basically explodes, you know, a big fire explosion at the end of the book, which is much more satisfying ending than what it is in the movie. But on to number 3. Number 3 is Pet Sematary. I read this book just recently, like last year, maybe early this year. And it deals with the Creed family. Lewis Creed, he's a doctor, and you know, he moves to, I can't think of the location where it is now, but him and his family, because he has a new job, and he's a medical examiner or doctor, like I said, and one of his patients, he works for the University of Maine, I think. One of his patients is killed, and he actually ends up seeing this person come back. He's haunted by this patient. Those are really great scenes when that patient's just talking to him. He's kind of got, his face has been caved in, I think, and it's really descriptive about how nasty he looks and stuff. But later on, he meets, you know, their neighbors, Judd Crandall, and he tells the Creed family about the Pet Sematary that's out behind their property. It's also, I believe, an Indian burial ground. But kids from that area have been burying their pets back there for years. And the daughter's cat gets run over. Church, the cat gets run over and killed, so they end up burying it back in the Pet Sematary. Cat comes back. A little while later, the little boy, Gage, he's about 2 years old. He ends up getting killed. He gets run over in the street by a semi-truck. And being a parent myself, I do have a daughter that's about Gage's age. I can't imagine what that would be like going through. Lewis Creed, the dad, he's chasing after Gage, and he just barely misses him, you know, grabbing him before he gets out in the street and gets run over. But that's got to be devastating. It's traumatizing to the whole family. Rachel, the mom, Lewis, you know, the dad, and everything like that. And it brings back, you know, memories of Rachel and when she was younger and her sister Zelda. And those scenes in the book with Zelda are some of the best scenes. She had some disease and she was withering away, and just her bones, and she's super skinny. You can see her bones coming through. Her hair is falling out. But those scenes are super creepy in the book. And the ending is wild. You know, Gage gets killed everybody knows that he gets buried in the Indian burial ground. He comes back. He ends up killing Judd Crandall, and he kills the mom. And Louis Creed is just at wit's end now. He ends up burying the mom in the Pet Sematary, thinking that if he does it quick enough, she'll come back okay. And the ending is chilling. He's sitting in his house. He's either drinking a beer, playing chess, or something like that, and he feels, the hand on his shoulder, and his wife's voice, whispers in his ear. So it's super creepy at the end. Love how it ends. But next up, this is the actual only book on this list that I own a copy of. All the other ones I read, I checked out from the library. But this is number 2 is It. And this is one of Stephen King's biggest books. I mean, that's huge. This and The Stand are his 2 biggest books, I believe. But everybody knows the story of It. It's great. The Losers Club. Love all the kids in the Losers Club. The town of Derry. It's a made-up town in Stephen King's universe, but it's great, thought out. The bullies are great. The sewer system, and Pennywise is one of, or the entity of It, is one of Stephen King's greatest villains, I think. It's a great coming-of-age story. I love in the book all the child's fears. It's a lot of horror movie icons from the 80s, like the Mummy and the Wolfman and things like that. But the story of the Losers Club, Stephen King writes great children. The dialogue, their interactions with each other are hilarious, and it's super on par with how kids act. You can tell other authors write kids, and it's just how they remember sort of being a kid. But for some reason, Stephen King always gets kids, gets that down, and it always feels like they're real kids, real life. And a lot of people probably can relate to how the Losers Club, different members of the Losers Club, and things that they went through and what maybe they've gone through in the past and stuff as well. But It is number 2. And moving on to number 1, my personal favorite Stephen King book that I've read so far is Salem's Lot. This was the first Stephen King book that I ever read back in 2015. So it sort of has that nostalgia feel for me as, being the first one I ever read, being introduced to Stephen King and his writing and his universe and stories. But it deals with the writer, Ben Mears. He's going back home to Salem's Lot, or Jerusalem's Lot, and he's writing a book on the Marston house, which is a sort of creepy old, house that's on the top of the hill that overlooks the Salem's Lot itself. And when Ben was little, he had some type of traumatic experience in the house. So he's coming back to write about it and sort of remember and relive the things he went through as a child. It is a vampire story. I like vampire stories. I really like in this one how the vampires don't really seem to be the focus. They're sort of in the shadows and on the outskirts of the story. And it's really dealing with the people in the town itself and how they are being affected and influenced by the vampires. The Glick brothers are great. When the one Glick brother's tapping on the window, wanting to be let in, it's a fantastic scene. Father Callahan's in the book. He has ties to the Dark Tower series as well. And I like the ending to the book. I like a lot of these endings. They're all, Stephen King likes to burn places down, at least in his early works, just utterly destroying whatever town or village the place is set in. But at the end of the book, they go into the basement of the Marston house and confront the vampire Barlow. Ben's girlfriend, I believe her name is Susan, I believe she ends up getting bit and turned into a vampire, and Ben has to end up killing her. He stakes her. He escapes with one of the boys, Mark Petrie, I believe is his name. They end up escaping the vampire and escaping Jerusalem's Lot, and they flee down to Mexico, I think. And then in the epilogue of the book, it shows them coming back to Salem's Lot. It's just overrun with vampires at this point, and they end up burning the forest down around Jerusalem's Lot, or Salem's Lot, and it consumes the village. And as far as we know, it wipes out all the vampires that are there. But that one is my number 1 favorite Stephen King book that I've read so far, Salem's Lot. I am going through and reading his collection of books in chronological order. I'm skipping the books I've already read, and I'm skipping the Bachman books for now. I started Carrie and finished Carrie a month or so ago. So now I'm on to, what is it? I read Carrie, Salem's Lot, The Shining. I don't have a copy of the original version of The Stand. I've got the extended and uncut version up here, so I'll be getting to that one later. I've read Night Shift, so my next book up for Stephen King is The Dead Zone, my chronological reading through. And I will be posting videos of my thoughts on all of the Stephen King books that I'm going to be reading through. But that's all I have for today. Like I said, that's my top 5 Stephen King books with my number 6 book, the Dark Tower series, the honorable mention. But thanks for spending your time with me today, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.